Me again. Ko ai tēnei e tuake nei, I te taho tōku paua, no Ngaitua Huriri, no Ngāti Hine Matua, no Ngāti Urihia, I te taho tōku taua, no Ngāti Awa te whānau Apanui me te Arawa, I tipu ake au ki ngā hau e whā o Aotearoa, I whānau ai au ki Whanganui, hioi mō ngā tau rua te kaupea, kua pahure, kua noho nei au ki o tautahi. No reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everyone, my name's Corban Te Aika. On my grandfather's side, hail from a little place called Tuahiwi, just down the road. On my grandmother's side, come from up around the Whakatā near Bay of Plenty, and even out towards Te Kaha, that part of the country. On my mother's side, mainly Welsh and Scottish, bit of Greek whakapapa in there too. But yeah, so I feel a little bit awkward talking to you guys about careers in culture and heritage because I'm currently working at a university in an engineering environment, which is a bit of an oddity, but I suppose just in terms of my own personal background, I went to uni to study law, decided after the second or third lecture that law was not for me, couldn't stand the content and thought the lecturer was quite racist, to be honest. And so I went back to what I was kind of comfortable with, which was things te reo, where I could have an argument, political science, and Māori and indigenous studies more broadly. And so the best thing about that combination of a degree is that it gave me a whole heap of what some people describe as being soft or transferable skills, which from my perspective are probably actually the hardest skills to acquire and master. And so as a BA graduate, there's that saying that, you find BA graduates like working in places like McDonald's and all sorts of random places where it's not really considered a real job following your degree. But that's part of the beauty of doing a BA. It gives you such a diverse range of skills that you can apply them to multiple contexts or situations. And so I've been lucky enough to be a lecturer at university. I've been a language planner for Ko Tahi Mano Kaika, the Ngaitahu Language Revitalisation Initiative. I've been a librarian here at Christchurch City Libraries. I've been a curator down at Canterbury Museum. And what else have I been? Couple of other things, but people sometimes critique me for moving around from one place to another, but I suppose a big part of my passion for mātauranga Māori and te reo and incorporating that into places and spaces like museums, like libraries, like the education sector, it's really around being able to see myself reflected in those institutions. And by myself, I mean our collective selves, whether that's me as a person from the Rohe, from Tuahiwi, whether that's my English whakapapa, whether that's your Polynesian whakapapa more broadly. And so quite often, the thing I'm passionate about the most is creating a space through which we can acknowledge our culture and heritage. And so I think there's a couple of things you need to be aware of. A lot of these kind of institutions that look after culture and heritage are very colonial institutions, to put it bluntly. And so there's inherent power structures in how they operate. And so you've got to have a passion for kind of pushing back and challenging at times. Because I think one of the biggest things when it comes to dealing with culture and heritage is whose culture and heritage is it that you're sharing? What's the audience? How do you know that it's authentic? And so you've got to be able to use that diverse set of skills that you might get through something like a Māori and Indigenous Studies major or political science, and look at how you apply those skills to critically think around the place and space of our knowledge, our culture and our heritage in these institutions. Couple of things I've learned along the way. It's not easy at times, particularly if you're the minority in those spaces, challenging the system. But more often than not, you'll find quite often a lot of your colleagues are thinking the same thing as you. And so just literally being able to be in a position to have robust conversations with your colleagues around the importance or value of knowledge and how it's constructed, whose knowledge it is, how we're portraying it, is it correct, is it accurate? Those are the things that I get passionate about. And so, transferable skills are probably the biggest thing I can stress to you guys because, again, from my experience in different institutions, quite often you've got the person who knows everything about microorganisms. They can't have a conversation with you about what they did in the weekend unless it involves talking about microorganisms, which is fantastic. I learned a lot about microorganisms from this particular person. But trying to get them to talk about, their family, their connections, their hobbies, their passions, their interests outside of microorganisms was near on impossible. And I think one of the biggest things that will be of benefit to people working in the culture and heritage space is connections and networking. And so that's probably been one of the coolest things about working in the culture and heritage space is that I know people that are specialists in microorganisms. I know people that are experts in fossils and can talk about the giant human-sized penguins that once roamed around the Waitaha region, which is now all wine country. And so, networks, those transferable skills, those soft skills, and really forming genuine partnerships and relationships with the people whose culture or heritage you're responsible for looking after or nurturing or promoting or celebrating. And culture and heritage can look different to different groups of people as well. And I think of it quite similar, in some ways it's similar to whakapapa. And if you know the generic kind of terms for whakapapa, you're probably familiar with family tree, genealogy, family history, things like that. But really, if you break up the word, whakapapa means to place things layer upon layer. And so we can collectively contribute to our culture and heritage by placing our experiences and building upon the past and trying not to repeat some of the mistakes of the past around culture and heritage as well. So having a broad kind of general knowledge base about all sorts of random things helps, but it also helps to have your kind of specialist areas where you know a lot about those particular things. And so for me, that's always been te reo and mātauranga Māori. And trying to embed that into places like museums, libraries, schools, and more broadly, the education system. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of that now at the College of Engineering at UC, where my role is to support the academics and researchers there to think from a kaupapa Māori lens, think about what mātauranga Māori might exist in relation to chemical and process engineering or civil and natural resources and things like that. In which, there's a lot of applications. Polynesians, for the most part, are some of the most intelligent engineers that the world has ever seen. They invented double-hull waka that, probably would have won the America's Cup 2,000 years ago. Doing circles around the Endeavour as it kind of slowly made its way through the ocean. Looking at mahinga kai practices and how forests weren't just a place where you would go find a tree to make a weapon or a boat, but you would grow fish hooks, and Polynesians are responsible for creating rotating fish hooks through the manipulation of the growth and of native natural resources and things like that. So there's a wealth of information out there, but quite often it's not always valued in the same way that it might be in terms of historical accounts of how Christchurch came to be. And so looking at that history before it was recorded and trying to bring that up to light, that's what I'm passionate about. But ka nui pēr I konei. No reira, hopefully that's a little bit. Few little gems in there, maybe. Maybe not. don't know, we'll see how many of you go into culture and heritage, but probably the people that you actually really need to listen to are some of the ones that are speaking later on after me. So, but yeah, tēnā koutou, kia ora.